Hey, it's Sam. I'm making this video today to talk about Saturn turning retrograde. Saturn turned retrograde on March 14th, which was Saturday. And it's important to understand Saturn is retrograde about half the time, close to half the time, about 5 months. You know, we make a big deal out of Mercury retrograde, which is really not even retrograde that often. It's about a month and a half out of the year, 2 months out of the year, 2.5 months, I think. I don't even remember. Saturn's retrograde close to half the time, about 5 months. Jupiter's retrograde about 4 months. So these are planets that are retrograde a lot. And it's important to understand what retrograde means, what Saturn and Jupiter principles are, and why they're retrograde so much. So the retrograde appears to be moving backwards relative to our place here on Earth. So this happens when the planet gets closest to Earth. So the retrograde is a way for that thing to become more integrated into our experience, because our life on Earth is related to our experience. That's why the astrology houses are related to our experiences, the actual things we do, because they connect our location with the sky at the moment. So wherever our location is, like in a birth chart, that determines the rising sign, that moment. If we're somewhere else at that moment, we have a different arrangement of houses. And the houses show our experiences on Earth, just like the proximity of the planets when they go retrograde shows our personal experience of that thing, and in a much more internal way. So we tend to externalize everything and project it outward. And these planets that go retrograde a lot, or that are retrograde for long cycles, like Saturn and Jupiter in particular, as far as the visible planets go, they refer to things that we need to be introspective about, for lack of a simpler way to put it. Now, Jupiter has been retrograde since the end of last year, since around Christmas. Jupiter is our long-term principles and philosophies. Really, it's what we believe in. And that includes things like religion. And even if you say you're not religious, you believe in something. Even if it's not a traditional religion. I know you might say you're spiritual but not religious. But whatever it is you believe in, that's your, you might say, belief. And religion is one belief, but you believe in something. Otherwise, you would probably have killed yourself by now. Because it's that philosophy we have about life that makes us stay around and have hope that one day things will be better, or that we're aspiring and growing towards something. That growth towards something is Jupiter. And we need to be reflecting on that a lot of the time. About 1/3 of the time with Jupiter, because it's about 4 months. 4 out of the 12 months Jupiter is retrograde. So about 1/3 of the time we need to be rethinking and becoming more personalized internally around Jupiter issues. And saying, is that really what I believe? And introspecting and questioning the belief and being willing to change and adjust as a result. That's why Jupiter is a very dual planet. He rules 2 dual signs, Pisces and Sagittarius, which are dualistic. So about 1/3 of the time we're supposed to be introspective. And Jupiter has been retrograde since end of December last year. He turns direct April 8th. I believe it was the 8th of this year. Saturn is our long-term commitments, and he really comes after Jupiter, especially you can see it in the zodiac scheme. We have Sagittarius, the first sign ruled by Jupiter. Then we have 2 Saturn-ruled signs, Capricorn and Aquarius. Capricorn is to implement the hopes and aspirations of Sagittarius. Sagittarius is the trajectory that our beliefs give us towards some big goal, externally, like a religion or something. But that's just abstract. Again, Jupiter's very abstract, what we believe in. And again, some people say, well, I don't really believe in anything, but that's not true. Maybe you believe in he who gets the most toys wins. Maybe your belief revolves around external expansion. This is the Western belief. The Western religion is kind of commerce, and make no mistake, things like trickle-down economics and all that, these are beliefs. These are beliefs that like drive the economy, that drive the world. Manifest destiny, that's the belief that gave justification for the American settlers to push the Indians off their land. Manifest destiny. It's our destiny to conquer this land. This is a belief. This is Jupiter. This is Sagittarius. So again, it doesn't have to be something as abstract as a religion. We all have a belief, and we're following that belief. And if our beliefs are corrupt, like they're not aimed towards something higher, then they go into something lower, like I need to earn a lot of money. That's my belief. And even if it's just, I need to earn a good living to provide for my family. That's a Jupiterian goal and a belief. But again, it just stays a belief until we make a commitment to it and put the hard work into practice, which is what Capricorn is. That's why Capricorn comes after Sagittarius. It takes the beliefs of Jupiter and of Sagittarius and turns them into commitments where we need to introspect and say, okay, if I want to make this happen, I need to first be internally committed. Capricorn is the reflective feminine sign of Saturn, where we need to first, it needs to come into our heart and we need to feel it. And then there needs to be integrity around what we believe. And once there's integrity around our beliefs, they turn into commitments where we don't give up on that thing and we manifest that because we stay the course. And Saturn is about, I should say Capricorn is about the form of things. And then the next sign ruled by Saturn is Aquarius, where once we've gotten very clear about our internal values and internal value equation, then we want to share it with the world in Aquarius. So I'm not talking about the signs, I'm talking about the planet now, but this is Saturn. Saturn operates this level of commitment. And again, our commitments, we need to be reflecting upon them close to half the time. 5 out of the 7 months, Saturn is retrograde. And so from March 13th until August 1st, he's retrograde. So we need to, now is a time that we need to be really reflecting upon our long-term commitments and goals, especially since like November of last year when Saturn went into Scorpio. So this Saturn retrograde in Scorpio, it shows that, a kind of insecurity. Because since Saturn went into Scorpio, Scorpio is a sign of insecurity and imagined fears and vulnerabilities, and Saturn wants to try to stabilize things. So it's been a time where we've been, since the end of November last year, when, the middle end of November, when we've been aware of our vulnerability, and that's also our hidden strength and hidden power. Because once we put attention on our vulnerabilities, they become strengths. But sometimes it's a very diabolical, it can be a diabolical path. Particularly when you get Saturn there, because Saturn tries to control things and make things tangible. And what can happen when we are functioning and operating on the level of intangible fear and worry, that takes the form of things like jealousy, like rather than have it be abstract, jealousy, worry about money, imagined fears about, the Illuminati and the global warming. And I'm not saying these things aren't real. Just because they're real doesn't mean us imagining the worst thing that could happen is beneficial, okay? Global warming is real. The plutocracy of world governments and all that's real. That doesn't mean worrying about it is helpful. Saturn wants to control things because we feel safe when we have a certain amount of control over our environment. This nature of Saturn first is to protect us against against danger. He's a tamasic sign that's related, he rules that reptile brain. If you've seen the recent series I've done on the brains, he rules that reptile brain. Saturn and Mars rule that R complex, the fight or flight response. Saturn is really the flight response. I want to avoid danger. Mars says I need to confront this and fight it. So when Saturn is in Scorpio, we're trying to avoid those things that we're afraid are going to come into fruition. So what we tend to try to do is control an outer circumstance. So Saturn in Scorpio can definitely have a lot of controlling issues. We've all been trying to maybe control some vulnerability or set up a situation in our life to control a deeper vulnerability, a deeper hidden fear that we have. And it could be based on something real. It doesn't mean that it doesn't mean the issue isn't real. It means that our relationship to it is conflated. Like let's say someone has they have a bad back. Okay, that's real. But that doesn't mean worrying obsessively about your back every second of the day is helpful, right? So again, you can't, this is what we get into though, because and of course I talk about these things during readings. People will say, well, my husband has cheated on me, or I had this, or I have this thing that happens with partners. in fact, oftentimes the issues are real, and they're set up there to teach us to not obsess over it and have it be the center point of our life. So I'm not saying that's necessarily been the focal point of your life since November, but there's been a situation where there was a shift from Saturn moving from Libra into Scorpio, where the focus on Libra was about our relationship dynamic with others primarily, and that give and take compromise that is only shown through Libra. Saturn was there for 2.5 years. He goes into Scorpio, and then it's about our vulnerabilities, and these vulnerabilities that arise around dealing with others, and the look in the mirror that it gives us. So you're going to find that this is an opportunity now for the next 5 months to be reflecting on those situations maybe that you've set up in your life that where you're trying to control something that is creating a lot of stress because there's a lot of imagined fear wrapped up in it, or it's wrapped around a lot of imagined fear of something. Could be a lot of things in transition, you know, where your life feels a little out of control on some level, and so this thing, okay, now that I have this, it feels solid, but the thing really isn't so solid. Or maybe it is solid, but you need to really reflect. Maybe it has a solid potential, but the stress of the situation and the unreality of it, the emotional quality of it, which is also Scorpio, makes it so that you can't really stabilize it. It's perpetually unstable, or it's hard to manage. But this is why Saturn, from an Ayurvedic perspective, creates Vata. You want to understand something that's very important, especially in this modern day. Saturn rules time. Okay? And now, our time is dispersed everywhere. Okay? Even you watching this video right now, you're sitting in your time and space sometime in the future. I don't know. I'm recording this in San Francisco on Sunday, March 15th at about 1:40 p.m. Okay? That's when I recorded it. You're seeing it who knows when. But the power of technology, quantum physics, molecular mastery that we have now allows for the transmutation of time and space. And make no mistake, it's nothing short of what we're doing. I'm taking my time and space right now and projecting it instantly into your time and space. Now that's a beneficial use of time-space bending, reality bending, based on quantum physics, quantum mechanics, this time-space. But a more problematic version of it is, first of all, the constant distraction culture that we have with YouTube, Facebook, email, text, things beeping, everything pulling our attention into some other time and space. And make no mistake about it, that's what it is. You're being pulled out of your time and space into another time and space, or someone else's time and space, someone else's agenda. Sometimes it's mine. And when you get pulled out of your time and space by me, by all means, pay attention. But this is what Saturn demands of us, is to be present. Presence. And presence demands that we're in our own time and space, and we're connecting to our breath and feeling our physicality, the physicality of our location, regardless of any extemporaneous condition or external desire that we want that exists in another time and space. Time and space is not just the future and the past, which the mind runs back and forth between these things, but in this world now, it's literally parallel times all over the place. It used to be time and space when yogis would discuss it. They would talk, time and space have to do with the past and the future. The present is not part of time. The present is the eternal moment that just keeps existing over and over again. Time is past and future. That's what how the yogis used to explain it, because the mind needs time to think. Time doesn't exist anywhere except in the mind. And it's because the mind needs time to think. Without time, there's no mind. Realize this. You're either in time or you're in the mind. There's no overlap. If you're in the mind, you're not present. When you're present, you're not in the mind. Now, time is not even past and future. Now time is this sort of quantum hyper meta present, meaning connecting with all these other people in real time, but not in real space. Your time is their space, or your space in their time, and all this stuff that is constantly pulling us out of the present. I'm talking about this because this Saturn retrograde is a time for us to get present to what's in our immediate proximity right now. Not some future that we hope is going to happen because of some situation we've set up that we hope is going to work out to control something that we're hoping is going to pay off or something. That's a diluted but somewhat specific version of what Saturn and Scorpio could be. As convoluted as that sounds, you need to look for something like that in your life and see if you got some kind of structure like that set up either psychologically or somewhere. And reconnect and recommit to the present moment. However it looks, whatever it's lacking, wherever it's falling short of that projection that you're hoping is going to stabilize everything, it doesn't matter. That thing that you're hoping is going to stabilize everything, let's say it does pay off just the way you hope it's going to pay off, you're still going to be stuck with yourself in the present moment. It's still going to be in the present moment, and your mind is going to be what your mind is. But Saturn creates vata because we're not present, and we wind up in these different time zones literally within ourself. Vata means stress. Vata is related to air. Vata is movement. And it's trying to control a situation that's not within our grasp, where our reach exceeds our grasp. And in this world, our reach constantly exceeds our grasp. I see it all the time. This video can reach out all over the place, and then I have 50 people email me wanting something, and I can't. I'm sorry. If you've emailed me and I didn't email you back, and we don't have any connection, I'm sorry, but I don't have time. I just don't. My reach exceeds my grasp. That's an example. I don't have time to respond to every YouTube comment or Facebook comment or this or that. It's not because I'm conceited. I just don't have time. Just like ways where your reach exceeds your grasp. The reach exceeds the grasp. We need to grasp the present and grasp control of our intention and attention, because attention is the only thing you have each moment. Attention, presence, that's the only thing you have. You really have nothing else. And that's great, because you have complete control over that. And in this modern world, our control of our own mind and of our own presence is leaking out in every direction, even in the present. So the old equation of the past is time, and that time is the past and the future, which is enough of a burden. Now it's even the present, the quantum present, the hyper meta present, with all of the electronics and all of the dreams that they fuel and the illusions of connection they create. They pull us out of the moment. And Saturn retrograde, especially in Scorpio, which is a sign of imagined fears that we need to strengthen, can really show this kind of malaise of vata and fear and stress that you're trying to control. So you need to let go of things that are just irrational fears, imagined fears, even if they're based on something that could be real or that have happened, and recommit to the present. Recommit to your attention and intention in this moment. And that brings you back to the breath, to simplicity, to silence. And those are the only things that are ever going to be liberating. Nothing external will. They can create a situation, but they're going to create a situation that's just going to allow you to drop into the present, which is the only reality. And this is the greatness of Saturn. People talk about that book, which is a fine book. It talks about a certain process of Saturn, but the greatness of Saturn is beyond anything else. It's the simple, silent moment that exists eternally. And you're either in it or you're not. You're either present in your own life or you're not. And we're not usually. The fact that we're unpresent, the fact that we're never present is just the norm. We don't even understand the difference, but we don't even know what it is to be present. Because we're hardly ever, we snap into it for a second and then we're out of it again. If that. Presence is a true gift. It is total silence and immersion in the peace that dwells within. The indweller. And that indweller is the eternal God, if you want to call it. And that's who you really are. And Saturn is really, in some ways, it's the only planet that takes you to that. Because only that is silence. Saturn is silence, and that's the only place where you really find yourself. Belief is wonderful, but belief just needs to bring you to silence. Beauty, love, wonderful, but that needs to be sublime to the point to where you where you return to silence. Enjoyment, wonderful, need to return to silence. Love, wonderful, need to come back to silence. Power, wonderful, need to come back to silence. Eventually. No other way.